An Eastern Kentucky native will be the next president of the Kentucky Bar Association. What the promotion means for our region. And Israeli leaders are calling it a tragic mishap, but many others are calling it the tent massacre. Latest on the Israel-Hamas war.
Plus, we are mainly dry for now, but rain chances increase by this weekend. Your forecast on the way as Mountain News First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
The Kentucky Bar Association recently swore in its newest president, and she is the first Eastern Kentuckian to hold the position in more than 40 years. WYMT's Buddy Forbes spoke with the Pike County native.
Several members of the Pikeville Medical Center legal team recently took on new roles at the Kentucky Bar Association, with one of those attorneys stepping in as bar president, hoping to share resources and spread awareness. Rhonda Blackburn is a Pikeville native and will be the first Eastern Kentuckian to hold the title of KBA president in more than 40 years. She says she hopes to continue the watchdog nature of the association, but plans to travel and inform its members about the educational offerings and mental health resources available, while sharing what her home has to offer along the way.
I want to be that representative to show, what riches this area has and what a great place it is to grow up. I'm a native of Pike County. To grow up here and to come back and, enrich our community.
Blackburn says this seat is a volunteer position, so she is not in it for the money. She just hopes to continue to strengthen the mission of the KBA and offer help to attorneys in need. In Pikeville, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
Don Combs and Miranda Click are the two other attorneys from PMC's legal team who accepted leadership roles with the KBA. Blackburn says they will work together to proudly represent the region. We'll take a closer look at Buddy's conversation with Blackburn coming up tonight at 6.
Well, for most, we are dry and warm on this Tuesday, but we are watching out for a few showers as well, especially in the Big Sandy Valley. Let's go to the radar, and you can see for most, we are dry at this hour, but we are zooming into a few light to moderate showers, one in eastern Pike County, also one just to the north of Pikeville on the Floyd and Pike County border, also one just to the south of West Liberty and Morgan County, and another light shower over parts of southern Magoffin County at this hour. A live look, though, from Perry County from Buffalo Mountain, tracking some blue sky and some sunshine. That current temperature up to 77 degrees, so we are close to average on this May afternoon. Most of us in the upper 70s to lower 80s, up to 80 for Harlan, also in Middlesboro, 81 for Somerset, up to 78 for Irvin, 75 in Jackson, also in Pikeville at this hour. Could we see a stray shower to go into this evening? It's possible, but for most, more mainly dry and mild conditions are looming as we see temperatures in the upper 60s to lower 70s, middle 50s to wake up on Wednesday, and a copy and paste forecast on the way tomorrow. Some more mainly dry weather, but we are much cooler by Wednesday. Some of us could stay in the 60s all day by Wednesday afternoon. All those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Cameron, thanks. Thousands of protesters marched in cities around the world after a deadly Israeli airstrike in southern Gaza. Israel said it was targeting Hamas commanders. But after it became clear that dozens of civilians were also killed, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there had been a tragic mishap. CBS's Imtiaz Tayeb has more and a warning here. Some of the footage is disturbing.
It's being called the Tent Massacre after Israeli warplanes targeted a safe zone for displaced civilians on Sunday night in the southern city of Rafah, where bodies were burned and mutilated beyond recognition. The devastating attack triggered spontaneous protests across the globe. Demonstrators took to the streets from Tunis to Paris to New York, demanding an end to the bloodshed in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu has called the killings of at least 45 Palestinians, mainly women and children, the result of a tragic mishap, as international condemnation of the brutal attack was swift and blunt. The UN says Gaza has become, quote, hell on earth, while several world leaders demanded an immediate ceasefire. The Biden administration's response has so far been muted. In a brief statement, it said, in part, Israel must take every precaution possible to protect civilians. The U.S. says it's a democracy, says Amal Musa, whose loved ones were killed in a separate Israeli strike. How is it that as a democracy, it is against the killing of children, but provides weapons to Israel? According to the CBS News team in Rafah, Israeli warplanes continued to target the city non-stop overnight, forcing thousands more to join the around 1 million who have already fled the fighting.
And between international courts potentially issuing arrest warrants for Israeli leaders and allegations it's committing a, quote, plausible genocide in Gaza, Israel finds itself increasingly under pressure and isolated as Spain, Norway, and Ireland will formally recognize a Palestinian state later today. Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, East Jerusalem.
And the Palestinian flag was raised at Leinster House, the seat of the Irish Parliament in Dublin this morning. A government decision to formally recognize the state of Palestine came into effect. Spain and Norway also moved to recognize the state of Palestine. Israel's foreign minister said on X that the move made Spain's President Pedro Sanchez, quote, complicit in inciting the murder of the Jewish people and war crimes. It got even more difficult to get aid into Gaza over the weekend. On Sunday, rough seas in the Mediterranean tore apart a pier built by the U.S. military specifically to get humanitarian aid into the region. The $320 million project has only been operational since May 17th, but in that time, 820 metric tons of critical aid for Palestinians passed through it. Taiwan's parliament passed a controversial reform bill granting new oversight powers to lawmakers. After the bill was passed, the parliamentary meeting continued with lawmakers from the ruling party taking turns making speeches on the parliamentary floor. Critics argued the bill was vaguely worded and accused the opposition parties of trying to force the bill without allocating sufficient time for policy deliberations. While protesters were outside the legislature, a scuffle happened inside. This is video of Taiwan lawmakers inside Parliament. The video shows what appears to be one person hitting another. As you can see in the video, the two were eventually separated. Pope Francis has apologized following reports that he used an anti-gay slur during a meeting with Italian bishops. The Vatican issued a statement saying in part, quote, the Pope never intended to offend or express himself in homophobic terms, and he extends his apologies to those who were offended by the use of the term, end quote. This comes after two Italian newspapers reported the 87-year-old pontiff made a homophobic slur in a closed-door meeting last week. Coming up on First at 4, some businesses are cutting prices to help encourage you to shop more. We'll take a look at the price trends next.
And a stray sprinkle is possible this evening, but most of us are tracking drier and cooler conditions. Those details coming up after this break.